Hey, I am a fool. I've been to a wedding. I have. Aye. And how I come to go there were like this. Squire of our village, he has somebody, I don't know, I think they call him a nephew or something, but he were going to get married. So he come over and he asked me to stand for him. Well, I didn't know what he meant, so after I'd asked one or two, like, what it was, they told me. I went back and I says, all right. So I dressed myself up like for a special occasion. I didn't know. Then was my little brown suit, what that's seen me wearing. Well, I put trousers belonging to that suit on, see. One leg's a bit shorter than the other, but it didn't matter. And I had a white waistcoat on. One what had whitened my sand, with lime wash in our little kitchen, like. And the blacksmith across the road, he lent me his frock coat. It were too big, like, but still, it didn't matter. I made it do. And I took my boots over to the cobbler, and I asked him if he'd put me a new pair of fronts in them. So he says, aye. But he says, I haven't got any black leather, but I'll tell you what, I'll do them with brown leather. And then I'll send some Stockholm tar, like, all over them. It'll make them look like patent leather. I says, aye, that's good. Well, then I thought, now, what am I going to do for a hat? And as luck would have it, Squire's nephew, he sent one of his hats over to me. And it wasn't a proper hat like what I've always seen before. He called it an opera hat or something. I know it wouldn't stand up long at a time, and someone said, spring's gone. Well, any fool knowed that, 'cause it was July. Well, anyway, we went up to church, and just as we were going in, crowds of people as we passed, they kept picking different ones out. And as I passed, they said, that's him, that's him, that's him what they're going to throw into Duck Pond after the wedding for a bit of fun. Hey, I took no notice. I thought it's only jealousy because I'm dressed up. So we went into church, and after waiting a long time, we went up, like, to see these people get wed. So a man stopped me, says, where are they going? I says, I'm going to stand for them. He says, well, stand here. So I did, right behind bride. And as bride went to walk away at finish, down I went on my back. Hey, and they had to take my boots off before they could get them off bride's dress. Stockholm tar had stuck all over it. And just as she was trying to get them off, somebody said, leave them on, it'll be lucky. And she left them on, and left church, and left me standing in my little red stockings. Here, listen. Has they ever noticed, when that does one thing, that they always does another? Well, then I tell thee about going to that dear wedding, when Squire's nephew got wed. Well, just to know what that's done for me, I've nearly been married myself. I have. And listen, how it were, there is a gentleman what lives near Squire in the village, and he has two daughters, and they're bonny lasses and all. Well, one of them is, the eldest one at 2, she's not as nice looking as the other one, so, but she's getting a lot of brass, I knows. Well, anyway, one day, we had a dance on village green, round pole. So, I don't know how it was, but some fella shouted out when he sees me. He says, by gum, he says, he's up pole. And they all laughed, you know. And there were one young woman, she laughed louder than anybody else. So a fella come to me and he says, Tommy, I want to tell you something. I said, what is it? He says, did I hear that young woman laughing? I says, aye. He says, the nose, she's laughing at thee. I said, get away. He says, it's right. By gum, and she likes thee and all. She's taking a fancy to thee. I said, go on, what are they talking about? He says, it's all right, but listen. He says, now, wait a minute. He says, I'm going to be a bit serious. So he tells me, he says, she's taking such a fancy to thee that she says she's going to marry thee. Well, then I took no notice, but in a couple of days after, like, somebody come to me again and he says, Tommy, then that young woman what were at dance on green? I says, aye. He says, well, she's going to get married to thee, so I believe. I said, oh, it's first I've heard of it. He says, well, it's right. He says, if I likes Tommy, I'll beat best man. I says, how does the mean I'll beat best man? Well, I says, what does he mean, like, but best man? He says, well, then I'll give thee away. I says, thou what? Give me away? By gum, if that does, I'll give thee away. Well, anyway, we went up to the registrar's office, and I met her there, and yeah, I did feel like, well, I felt happy in one way, and I felt miserable in another. Anyway, gentleman says to us, he says, now then, speak up, Tommy, will thou take this here woman for thy wedded wife? And I said, well, I fell on the floor, and I got up and I run away and left him.